to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And oh yes, Joy the cat has decided he's going to join us for a little bit here, looking for a lot of attention. So if you hear funny things like, knocks against the microphone and stuff, you'll know what that is. If you're watching on the video and the video goes crazy, you'll know what that is. But I'm trying to calm this poor guy down because he's just like craving attention right now. But that's not who I have my main attention to give to today. Because first of all, Anne-Marie, we didn't get a chance to talk last week, so it's been a couple of weeks since we talked, right? So
yeah.
Hello again. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Walt. How are you?
Doing great. Yep. I'm enjoying life, having a good time, doing good stuff, getting ready to go on a trip this coming weekend to visit family in Virginia. So that's going to be good.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I haven't seen either my brother or my sister or my niece since before the pandemic. So this is going to be a little bit of a reunion.
Oh, wow. Yeah. How exciting. Enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Thank you. I think I will. And we have, as usual, a special guest joining us today. Her name is Jenjo, or Jen, just not Jenny. We won't call her Jenny. Did I say Jenny? No, I didn't say that. No, but Jen is one of those unique people who there are a lot of people. We've had many life coaches and therapists and psychologists and all that kind of person who who's really interested in helping people on a one-on-one basis on the show over the years. We've occasionally had one or two people who are coaches to coaches. And that's kind of a different animal because, it's one thing to learn how to coach another human being. It's another thing to learn how to coach a coach. It's just a different thing. It's a different realm. There's overlap, obviously, because they're all in the same field. But you kind of have to take it to the next level because when you're coaching a coach, it's not like they don't know the tricks. It's not like they know how the game is played. They already know how the game is played. They've got that part figured out. What they're trying to figure out usually is how to move their business forward, or they need somebody to kind of check them or help them out, be kind of a supervisory role when they're dealing with their own emotions about having dealt with a client or something along that line. It's a different kind of thing. So we're going to learn all about that from Jenjo today. Jen, hello. Welcome to the program. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me here. I actually am even more niche down now because I help introverted coaches in particular. So I'm really helping them, not only build their coaching skills and gain confidence and break through all the doubt that comes up when they're starting a new business, but the actual business practices of how to get started in a way that feels good to them. Because as introverts, our way of showing up in the world looks very different than that of extroverts. And I felt like a lot of the marketing was towards the extroverts. And I'm like, I struggle to find my way in this industry. So I just want to help other people like me shortcut their time so that they can actually get to the part where they're helping people and making a difference and loving the work that they do, which is what I do. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, and Anne-Marie knows, we can both sense there's a story back there as to why it was you decided to take what give us the scoop here. What was the story that led up to that?
First, I didn't even know life coaching was a thing. So back in 2016, I have a long history in education. I was a teacher. I even had my own consulting company where I was writing. Yes. So I was pretty in there, right? And I coached and trained teachers and did all those things. But there got to a point in my career where I knew the next level up was becoming a principal, and I didn't want that. So I sought my own coach to help me figure out my next career move. And I told her about this vision that I had, that I was working with a group of women around a circle and just supporting them and helping them reach their goals. And she was like, Jen, that's coaching. And I was like, no, I don't want to just do problems. I don't think that's what it is. And she was like, that is coaching. That is group coaching. That's what you're saying you want to do. And I struggled, even though she said that's what it was, and I knew in my heart that's ultimately what I wanted to be doing, it took me a while to get there. So I started with something small. She had me start a blog. So I started blogging, and I was writing about how I achieved my goals. And then eventually I was like, okay, I need to go all in. So I went and got certified, but then I struggled to tell people that I was a coach. And that's part of the piece that people really don't talk about. They tell you, okay, go get certification and learn the skills of coaching and then go build a business. And you're like, okay, I'm doing the back end things that I'm supposed to be doing, but the front facing activities, they make me so uncomfortable as an introvert. I don't want to be out there putting my face and blasting people and being flashy like that. That was such a turn off. So I had to find a way that worked for me. So it took me a while. It took me a while to get it, but once I did, oh, things took off. And my second client ever was someone that I met at a Tony Robbins conference. And
Ooh.
I don't even know if he knows he was my second client ever.
Well, it's out there now. Sorry, too late.
Oh,
You know.
he watches this. He actually just emailed me. We're good friends now. But he was a coach, right? And he had started on this journey even before me, but I wanted to thank him for his kindness, for helping me on this journey and everything. And I offered him 6 weeks of free coaching as a thank you.
Yeah.
And he did so well during that process. And he was like so impressed with my level of support that I was able to provide for him that he was like, Jen, you really should be coaching other coaches. Because I helped him go through that hump of like telling people that this is what you do and all the like the mental chatter that we deal with when we're starting this business. And I told him, yes, I will at some point, but first I got to grow as a coach myself. I got to be able to grow my own coaching practice, doing something else before I start helping coaches grow theirs. So I was a career coach because I had experience switching jobs often. I knew how to negotiate despite being in education, which is a very weird thing. Like people don't negotiate in education. I was one of the rare people to do that. And I helped people in so many different industries. But then I was like, yeah, but I want to do this coaching thing. So I slowly started taking on a few more of those clients and those clients. And now that's like one of my main focuses is supporting coaches, introverted coaches in particular, and helping them get started and break into this industry and succeed.
That's cool. Yeah. And the whole thing about being introverted and having to do marketing on a new business, that's not just something that coaches experience. Anybody who goes into business who has an introverted streak is going to experience. I experienced that. It's not fun. It's not a fun feeling. And it's kind of terrifying, to be perfectly honest.
It is. So one of the things that we tend to do is work on the back end task, right? And I call this being like the student, right? You want to be a good student. You want to make sure everything's in a row. Like you did all your research, you're watching all the videos, you did all the logistics of getting the business name and everything. And I was like, yeah, but how many people have you spoken to?
Yeah. No, not that. I don't want to do that.
No. I need to make sure my Instagram looks great. I need to do this. I need to build this course for several months and then I can start telling people. I was like, no. That's not how this works. Like the sooner you get out there and you start telling people is when you start building your own confidence. That self-doubt starts chipping away and you start assuming the identity of being that thing. And in this case, being a coach, right? Like how often are you out there engaging with people as a coach, using those coaching questions, actually spending hours coaching people, not doing the business-like activities.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And now I also have something else that popped up in my mind too while you were talking, and I'm curious to know if this is true for you. Now, I'm not a coach. I actually have considered coaching. It's not something I really want to do. I never really wanted to be a coach. But having said that, from the time I was, in the middle of my teens, people would just talk to me and open up. I was having a conversation with a potential date over the weekend. And she's opening up to me about what was happening in her childhood. And I mean, I didn't even ask about her childhood. I was like, it just was coming up. Have you found that in your background? Did you experience the same kind of thing?
Yes, I was always the person that people confided in. Like, and even on dates, like people tell me so much on a first date. It's very weird, but I guess you have this ability too, that you can make people feel very comfortable around you. You create the sense of safety that allows them to just share, right? And one of the other characteristics that comes very natural to us as, introverts and people that allow people to put those walls down is that we're good listeners. We can hold space and just kind of let them speak without feeling like we have to interject and share our story or our experience. Just let them be, right? And that's a big part of coaching is just like really holding space for someone to share what they're experiencing and not inserting yourself.
Yeah, that holding space thing. That's a theme that has come up a lot over the years, talking to so many different people who are either in the coaching space or therapy or social work or something where they're working with people, dealing with the very real day-to-day problems that people have to deal with. That holding space. I remember the first time I heard that phrase, holding space, it was kind of confusing to me because I was thinking, well, what does space have to do with it? It's an emotion. But then I realized, oh, that's what you mean by a space. Got it. All right. Yeah. But once I learned that and understood what they were talking about, it kind of makes sense because what you're really doing is saying, like you said before, I'm creating a safe environment for you to feel like you can release and open up and talk about those things you would never talk about to anybody else.
Yeah, and that leads to a really strong relationship between coach and coachee, right? So that they feel like this is a space that they can come and just be authentic and completely honest about what they're struggling with, what they're dealing with, all the feelings. Because I know you think it's like interesting, like coaches, we have these coaching skills, and you're like, well, why don't you just use your coaching skills on yourself? But sometimes you're so close to the issue that it's so hard because you're the one feeling the emotion. So you can't be like so detached from that situation that you can see clearly because you're just too close to it. So it's really nice to have someone else. And I tell my clients, like, you're just holding the mirror for them. You're just reflecting back what you're seeing in them, right? What they're saying and how it's showing up, what you're seeing in their body, so that they can better assess what they want to do in that situation.
Well, plus also, I mean, you tell me, but I kind of get the feeling I already know. I can kind of read that this is the direction you go anyway. That if you're a coach, you're kind of crazy if you don't have a coach of your own. That I've even had coaches say to me, I wouldn't trust a coach who didn't have a coach.
Yeah, because I always feel like, how are you saying or expecting someone to purchase this from you when you haven't purchased it from someone else? When
Right.
you don't believe in it enough for you to invest.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really big thing as far as like when people talk about pricing their offers, and it's like you want people to pay you this amount, but you've never invested at that level. Like what is it that you're saying? Like you want it, but you're not willing to give it to someone else. Like
Mhm.
and I think a lot of the issues that people have around charging also come from that because it's like, well, have you paid that, right? Have you
Mm.
in that level? Because once you have, you don't feel so crazy and like, oh my God, how dare I say that? It's like, no, I've paid that. I've gotten that value. I believe someone else can pay me that and get this value from me too.
Yeah, there's another important word, value. And it's one of those words that is a little bit undefinable just because everybody has a different sense of what is of value to them compared to what somebody else might consider to be of value. So valuing something like coaching is a little bit of a challenge at first. I think that's one of the reasons why people experience what you talked about, that difficulty of reconciling, especially if they're going into the coaching field, what are they going to charge for it? But as you say, if they're going to go into that field after having experienced it themselves, the sense, the not the sense of value, the attribution of value, the setting of value in one's own mind, in one's own experience, like you say, it does get affected by having gone through it yourself. And interestingly enough, and again, I'm going to be curious about not just your take, but Anne Marie's, because I know Anne Marie's been through coaching and has actually considered becoming a coach herself. But when you're going through it, it's hard to identify, well, is this valuable? How valuable is this thing? Because it's so, esoteric. It's not something that you can just say, well, this is worth 36.45. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just, it's going to be different for every person. It's going to be based on, how much need for help the person has, how much growth they feel like they want to accomplish. I mean, there's a whole range of stuff that's involved in this. So, I mean, that value piece is a challenging piece to deal with.
Yeah. And believing you're worth that is a really big one for new coaches that are just getting started. And they're like, oh, I know and even if they have invested at that level, they don't think that their skills are at the level that they can charge that, which I feel is valid. And I feel like over time, you get better at your coaching craft. So in the beginning, one of the things I tell people is like, just charge something that feels easy for you. Because right now we're just working on the identity of you being someone that gets paid for your coaching. And that alone can be transformational for the coach, like someone paying you whatever you feel is fair and easy for you to go out there and sell and tell people about. Because I know one of the things that really stalled my growth in the beginning was believing that I had to charge a certain price point for people to take me seriously. Yet I had so much self-doubt because I had never sold coaching. Like, who the hell am I to charge those prices if I've never done this before, right? And it was finally when I released the need for it to be at, multiple, digits and stuff I was like, let's just charge something easy that I believe in, that I feel like I can get behind and I can give this value. Like that feels on par with what I can deliver. Is when I started signing clients. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Anne Marie, I mean, you've both been in the coaching realm as a client, but you've also put your toe in the water in terms of also being a coach to people. How do you feel about the whole value question? How do you kind of address that in your mind?
I just think coaching, if you get a good coach, it's priceless. It's absolutely life-changing. It can just make such a difference to yourself. Just getting other people's perspectives, just a little bit of guidance through life, just things that you normally probably, as Jen said, you wouldn't normally do yourself. It's way out of your comfort zone, but somebody's pushing you to do it. And especially when you've got that monetary investment, then you don't want to waste your money. So you kind of go for that investment, and it does it pushes you. So I think if you get something for free, you don't always appreciate the value in it. So when you actually put some funds behind it, then it gives you that little urge to push yourself a bit harder. And I just think coaching, for me, I love doing it. I love having coaching. I love talking to people and just giving them a little bit of coaching, just your friends or whatever it may be. I just find it quite exhilarating.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because when you pay attention. And I believe that's true for me. Like, and that's why I'm like, those free downloads that you get sometimes are just not as valuable because you don't value them, because you're not showing up as if you have paid something for them. But I know my free 5-day challenge is super valuable, right? If you are willing to commit to doing it and paying attention, like I could easily charge for that. And that's what I always strive for, like to always give more than I'm getting from that person.
Yeah, you mentioned your challenge, your 5-day challenge. Your come out of the closet as a coach challenge. I love that name, but tell us a little bit about that.
So I realized like there was a gap in the steps that people tell you to take to become a coach. So yes, go get your certification and then go set up the site and your social media accounts and set up a proper business and everything. But then you could have all of that and you still haven't gone out there to be comfortable in telling people that this is what you do. Right? You're like, I have the website. I have, I changed maybe, I created a new Instagram account, which says it, which nobody's following because he created it like yesterday, right? You're like, but do your colleagues know that this is what you're doing? Do your friends know? Does your family even know, right? How many people have you told? Real people out in the world, right? Or even on socials, like have you put it out there more than one time that this is what you're doing, that you're open for business? And I know that that's a challenge, and there's many steps that need to happen for you to get ready to feel comfortable to do that. And that's what I cover in the 5-day challenge. I had someone just take it and interview me on her podcast and share all about it. She thought it was amazing. I was like, yeah, it is amazing, because I know I shared it all. I'm not holding back. I'm giving you all this value because I want more coaches to feel comfortable taking that step, right? And I know that that's the first step that actually needs to happen, is you actually going out there and telling people that this is what you're doing. Then you're more motivated to get through and complete certification. Then you're more motivated to get out there and like create a really great offer and start offering to people, because you're like, oh, people are paying attention. They actually want to work with me. Let me get really good.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And you're right, especially, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
No, I was just going to say how lovely that must be to just watch people's confidence once they've gone through that and they've got their first client and they've gone through their course and they realize their value. How beautiful that must be to see.
It is. And that's why I love being able to offer my course, my longer course, right? Not just the freebie, but where I actually help and guarantee that people sign their first 6 clients, because I know that was the game changer for me. It wasn't just getting certified. I thought that was going to be the thing. It wasn't. It coming out and telling people was a big step, but the real transformation happened after I signed about 6 or 7 clients at that point, where I was like, this is actually something that could be a real profitable business. I've made enough right now to confirm that people want this and that I actually can get people results, right? Because now I had actual people that had results that I could really lean on and say, okay, I'm not a fraud. I am able to give this value. I am able to create transformation in these people's lives. And the value that I gave them, even though it was for this time period, I know it does continue. Like Anne-Marie said, it's invaluable. I know this one change, helping them land that job and helping them negotiate that, is going to have an impact on the rest of their life, right? Or helping them get into the right industry, career, or helping them start this coaching practice is going to change their life. It's not just the 6 months that they were with me. It's forever changing them, which is amazing.
And exciting too, because that means you're creating a vibrational flow that goes on well beyond the coaching period.
Yeah. And then this is why I have such great relationships with my clients, right? Like I told you, my second paying client, he emailed me today pictures of his baby, right? And I'm just this is so exciting, right? I get to still be a part of their lives because they do value that transformation that I gave them, right? And what they were able to create as a result. And changes their life. Yeah.
Very important too, what you were talking about earlier. You said it Well, but it goes by so fast, it's easy to discount it. And I want to bring it back into the focus here for a moment. You talked about the importance of have you told your friends, have you told your family? For an introvert especially, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
That's really big. That's where the rubber meets the road, because now you're exposing yourself. You're making yourself vulnerable in a way that introverts do not like to feel vulnerable and exposed.
And you're
Right?
making it
So
real, right?
it makes it very real once we tell those people, because those people are going to check in like, oh, how's that little business going? Right. And it's also really hard because these are also people that might doubt us, and we
Yes.
want their support. And they're the first people to look at us sideways and be like, are you really doing that? Are you still your little business? Right. And they try to downplay what we're doing. And we're so worried that their level of self-doubt is going to like impact us in a negative way and make us want to stop doing it. But this is when you know whether you're really in it. Am I willing to tell them? Am I willing to keep on doing this? Am I willing to push past all their negative naysaying to see this through because I want it? Right. And then that's the point that I had to get to, where it's like, even if I don't make money my first year or my second year, which was the case, like I really struggled until I was like, oh, now I figured it out. I'm going to stick with it because I love this. And this is something I want. And I have a vision for what this can be. And that vision is what carried me to where I am today, where I am a full-time coach, where I transform the lives of my clients, where I get to live wherever I want. I live in Mexico right now. But because I was willing to do this, I was willing to put up with the feelings and work through them and show up and keep on going despite what everyone else was saying. Like my family, oh my gosh, just until the other day, I've been full-time in my business for years now. And they're still like, what are you going to get a job in education? You don't want to go?
I was just wondering about that. Yeah.
No, I have a business. Like I'm a coach. I've been doing this for years now. Like, what are you talking about?
But you're not going to quit your day job, right?
Right. Listen, if you want someone else's life, ask them what they're doing. Right? I don't want that life that they have. I want this vision of a life that was very different than what they had. So I was willing to do something differently. And it worked out.
It's actually a theme that plays up with a number of famous people who, usually they're entertainers, sometimes they're political or news or, something along that line. But they're people who their own families doubted them, their friends doubted them, and they had to kind of break through all that. But in the process of breaking through all that, in the process of basically taking a look inside and challenging their own beliefs about what other people thought about them, that's where they really did their first big growth spurts. Because, well, I mean, that's the way growth usually works, right? Growth happens when we're in pain. It doesn't usually happen when we're feeling great. It would be great if it did, but
Wouldn't
it's so easy to give up, right? When you're hearing all that negativity and when you
Yeah.
see that you haven't produced the kind of results that you thought you would. I think we all have like this really warped idea of how fast things happen sometimes. And it's like, right? We're like, oh my God, overnight success. Yet they were working on this for 10 years in the background before you learned about it. So you got to really lean into the people that are supporting you, that the few things I call this, and I teach my clients to do this, I call it keeping a hype file, where you basically take the positive things people have said, whether verbally, and then you type it on a message and send it to yourself, or I keep it in a folder in my email. So when my clients send me, hey, sign my first client, or landed the job, or this, I put it in a special email. So whenever I need it, I go to my hype file and I remember all the things, all the good wins and good things people said about me to really hype myself up.
I love that. The former co-host Jackie Gates did exactly the same thing. I think she even called it the same thing. But I mean, I heard her stories. I'm sure it's probably true for you too. One of the great benefits of having that file, that clip file of all these wonderful hype things that have happened to you over the years, is when you're not feeling it, when you're feeling down or defeated or distracted or depressed or whatever, you go to that file and it picks you right up.
It really does. I keep, well, right now I don't I'm looking out at a window, but where I was previously, I had a wall right before my desk and I had all these Post-its. I still have the Post-its, but I just wrote the names of all my clients. Like I could literally pull it out there, all grayed out now because it's been hitting with the sun and it's kind of faded. But the names of my clients, and when I look at those names, I think of, oh my gosh, I was able to help this person achieve this. I was able to help that person achieve this. And it just fuels me to want to go help more people and to grow the list of names, right? The list of names on those Post-its, because I'm like, that's a person's life who's transformed now. Like, of course I want to go do more of this. Even when I feel crappy, I'm like, but there's another person just like them out there that is waiting for me to go help them. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not just something that a coach can do. Anybody can do. Jackie her background actually is in theater. She actually was in the theater field for a number of years. She actually performed in Australia in some top line theater productions, and she has the clippings from that experience, and she used that whenever she was trying to get her next theater gig, her next acting role, to keep herself going. So that's not coaching, but it's an example of how you can take it to whatever field you're in and apply it in whatever field you're in to use it as motivation to stay focused, to stay true to that thing which supposedly is your passion, because that's why you're in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because if you're not following, well, that's actually another question too. That's something we've talked about a lot. A lot of people pursue fields of work that's not their passion.
Yeah.
And it comes back to haunt you in the long run, but it also means that when it does come back and you have to kind of wrestle with, okay, so what is my passion? That's when we have the most difficulty, the most challenge. Yeah, okay, she's raising her hand.
Yeah.
So like I told you, I had a long history in education, right? So I wanted to work from home and I knew I wanted this coaching business, but it wasn't panning out fast enough. So one of the things I did was start a consulting business. So I wrote curriculum for a school district. And it's a skill I had. I knew I could do it. It was easy. I could do it from home, but it was pure torture every day to sit there and write this curriculum. My heart wasn't in it when I knew I had already started the coaching journey, but I was like, I just need this thing to make money so I can go to that. So it was so hard. And eventually I had to just shut down the consulting business, go back to having like my regular job for a little bit while I focused my energy and efforts on growing just the one business that I wanted, which was the coaching business. And then that's when things really took off. Yeah.
That's cool. That's really good. I'm thinking of my own experience where for years I was in the IT field, and then I went entrepreneurial, and I became a web designer and a web host and so forth. And that evolved into a number of different businesses over the years. But I wasn't doing what I really loved. I was great at IT. I put a computer in front of me in 1980. I could make total sense out of it, where everybody else was saying, "Oh my God, what's that thing?" I mean, it was just easy for me, but I didn't love it. To this day, you want to really piss me off? You want to really irritate me? Ask me to help you solve a computer problem. I mean, you'll just drive me nuts because, oh, not again, please. I just can't. I don't have any more patience for this. That's the way it feels.
Yeah.
That's the way it feels when you're not pursuing your passion. But at the same time, after having done that for so long, when I finally had to face the question of, well, what is my passion? I didn't know. I mean, I've been doing that for so long. I really had no clue. It took me years to figure out. And it turned out one of my passions was doing a podcast. Who knew? I had no idea. But, I kind of stumbled on it because I was trying to figure out what my passion was.
Yes. And this I see in the career coaching clients that I support. It's like, well, I've been doing this thing. I know how to do this thing. I may not like doing this thing, but I know how to do it. So they often try to just go find other work doing that same thing.
Yeah.
You have to zoom out and really get clear on, but what aspects of the job do you enjoy and what aspects of the job do you not enjoy? And then I have this activity where I have them come up with a list of 100 jobs. And I'm like, just list everything that's ever seemed remotely interesting. And then as we slash through things that they do or still don't like, or I ask more questions or I see a theme, we find the key things that are really lighting them up, And I'm like, oh, okay, but this is a theme, this is a theme, this is a theme. So it sounds like the kind of work you do is creative in this nature, or has this has this feature to it. And then the closer we get, but then we have to go try things. It's not just going to come. We have to actually go do something. We have to go try things and test it out and see how we feel in it. And the more we try things, the more we talk to people that are doing these things, the clearer it becomes what we should be doing.
I love that. I actually talked about that one point a lot, particularly in the early years of the podcast. And it's the fact that you do have to try things out. It's a little bit scary at first, a little daunting, like, oh my God, that's a big task. But the funny thing is, I don't know about you, Jen. I found that I would come up with like I think I came up with like 8 or 10 different possible directions to go in. Some of them took me like a half an hour. I didn't have to try real long. Some of them I had to do longer than that. But most of it is just you just had to kind of immerse yourself into it for a bit and try it and see. Oh no, that feels yucky. I don't want to do that one. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's all it takes. It seems like, oh my God, you have to spend years and years before you find out. No, you actually can find out pretty quick.
Yep. Go try it. Low stakes.
Yeah, low stakes, right?
Yeah.
Because that's really the trick. Yeah. Sorry, Anne-Marie, did I interrupt you? I thought you were trying to say something while I was saying that.
Yeah, no, I was gutted because I lost my internet then as you were saying all that, and I was just thinking, like, I still want to know what I want to be when I grow up, so that would have been so useful.
Well, okay, let's turn that into. I mean, I know you're saying that in fun, but let's turn that into a thing, okay? So, Jen, let's
Let's
say
do it.
Anne-Marie hired you, and she's trying to
Yeah.
figure out what she wants to do. Walk us through it. Let's see how it works.
Okay. So Anne-Marie, what is it that you're currently doing? What kind
So
of
I'm
work
in
do you do?
IT.
IT. Okay. Is there any aspect of that job that you
So
enjoy?
I do well. Yeah, I do actually. I'm in this. I do contract stuff, so it's like relationship management. So I enjoy the whole relationship thing. I enjoy the finance side of things. I enjoy talking to people and just building relationships.
Anything you don't enjoy?
Some of those relationships, but just that. Yeah.
Yeah. So relationships is a pro and a con. Totally.
No.
Okay. So
No, I think when you can actually break through and build a relationship with somebody who's very awkward, then that's very rewarding. I don't think there's anything I particularly don't like. I don't like deadlines particularly, but that's a major part of my job.
is there anything that you used to do before that you missed that you're not really doing right now? Any hobbies?
Yeah, it would. I used to do like lots of like counselling kind of stuff. I used to do a lot of voluntary work around counselling, suicide, phone lines and things like that. So I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. So it makes sense you liked coaching because relationship building, that counseling aspect, that supportive aspect. Okay, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we would do is I typically have like a Google Doc in front of me while I'm on the call. And I would ask Anne-Marie to list 100 jobs, to tell me 100 different jobs. Did you guys catch that?
Sorry, I cut out again then. I know I got checked out halfway through that. So you want me to list 100 jobs?
100 jobs.
That I would like to do? Okay.
No, I don't want you to, no. Mm-mm. Don't put that parameter on it. Here's the thing. The second that you put the parameter of that I would like to do, our brain is going to shut down and be very like, oh, I have these 5 things and that's it. I don't even want you to put that on there. I just want 100 jobs that are out there in the world, maybe that have come across that seem interesting, some that aren't even, but I just want you to give me 100, right? And we would spend the time I would list all of them and as many as you could. And then we would comb through which ones are a definite no versus which ones we'd want to explore a little bit more.
Okay, so it would, let's go, just name jobs: teaching, counseling, coaching, computing, finance, payroll, talking, listening. That's not really jobs, but those kind of skills. Banking, communications. This is a lot of jobs. This is a lot of thinking.
Yes, it is a lot of thinking. But I'm going to stop you because I'm not typing them down. So there's no way for me to remember everything you said. But essentially, yes, we'd look at them and based on the ones that you tell me you might be interested in learning more about, not that you're interested in doing, and just learning more about, we'd look for the features, right? The commonalities, the patterns that are present in these jobs. because they would really
Yeah.
speak to the core of what you want. And they would just lead us down the trail. And as we narrow down, we get to maybe like 5 of them. And then at that point, I'd say, how can you learn more about them? And this might be doing some Google research, tapping into your network, talking to people that do this kind of work, and determining whether or not this is something you'd like to seek more information on, right? If this is something you'd like to try. Because one thing that I tell people all the time is like, you don't want to just jump into this new industry or field blindly. You want to test drive it, right? And the test driving comes from talking to the people, talking to people, doing enough research, finding out what they like and what they don't like, looking for what's in common in those, and seeing if that's something that would still suit you. And then going, testing it out a little bit, freelancing or something, helping someone on a project with something, low stakes, before you ever then go start pursuing a career in that field.
That's a good approach. I like that a lot. You mentioned something else
Simple.
that I think is really, really important.
It sounds so obvious, but it's just not something you would do.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You mentioned the network, though, the personal network. This is actually tying into a theme that I have been kind of banging the drum on for the last couple of years, off and on, which is that if you want to succeed in whatever it is you want to succeed in, whether it's a business or career or health or building a better relationship or improving your finances or whatever it might be, you need to have a good circle of friends, a good set of connections that you can interact with, not necessarily in that field, but just to have, good people that you can count on, people who have a certain like-mindedness to you, people who have shared values and so forth, people you trust, people you feel you could reach out to in a crisis. And that's not always something that people have. That's one of the reasons I keep hammering on. It's one thing that introverts often don't have very much of. If they have close friends, it's like 1, 2 perhaps who are really, really close. I mean, that's not really a circle of friends, so to speak. It's important because usually they're very in-depth friendships, but the breadth of friendship is missing there. The breadth of connections is missing there. I'm kind of curious to know what your take is on how important it is to build out that network, irrespective of what field you're trying to go into or what you're trying to improve in your life.
I think, yes, it's important to build it. And I teach people strategies of how to connect with people online and doing those things. But I think we also underestimate how many people we already know right now, and we don't know who they know, right? We think, oh, well, this person, they're not really in that industry. You don't know who they know, right? You don't know who they hang out with on the weekends. Like, you don't know their friend circle. You don't know who their boss is. You don't know what connections they have. Like, don't discount that. And especially when it's like during the job search type of activities, like we were talking about, tell people you're looking. You don't know who they know and what they know about. And if they know that you're open and looking, they will be able to present things to you, especially if you tell them what you're looking for, right? Then they can think, oh, I play tennis with this person and she works for this company. Like, oh, I can totally see if, she'd be willing to talk to you or connect with you or something like that. Like, you don't know. So just be open and to connecting with the people that are already around you. And then I even did this when I was like traveling abroad. I was going to Colombia and I was like, I don't know anybody in Colombia. Let me tell people on social media that I'm going to Colombia and I would love to know someone there. I just put it on my social media. People were like, oh, I know somebody. They were just there, or they're in this area and they're in this area. Let me connect you, right? People I haven't spoken to in years. People want to be helpful, right? They're just wanting to be helpful. So you don't know who other people know. As long as you're open to putting it out there, you can.
It could be a bit of a shock too, a bit of a surprise when you do find that there's a connection out there that you weren't aware of, a connection through a connection. I mean, because when it actually comes out, I mean, before you do it, it's easy to talk yourself out of it. And then if you go and do it, you put it out there like you did, you put it in your social media and got some responses. It can be kind of surprising what your responders know, who they know, what they've done in their background. Like, I never knew you went to Colombia. When did you do it? Why did you tell me about the trip to Colombia, for goodness sake?
Yeah. So I was connected to somebody on Facebook, and me and her had hung out for a while. She connected me to someone whose videos I used to watch. I was like, you know her personally? I watch her videos. She's hilarious. She's like, yeah, she's in Colombia. I was like, go figure, right? So now I had this connection. Well, nothing really came of it. It felt good to know that people were looking out for me in that way. People were just so ready to support. And that made me feel really seen. And that was like a good feeling. I was like, oh, my
You,
network is way bigger than I thought it was. Yeah.
you just said something else really, really important. Something may not have come out of it. That happens more often than not. It can be, especially if you're an introvert, that could be another block that says, well, nothing came out of that contact. Why am I even bothering to do this? I'm just going to shut down again.
Yeah. And that happens, right? Like I go into my little shell and I got to climb out of it every now and then, right? And talk myself up because I like maybe that situation or something didn't come out of it yet, right? Like I don't know what may come in the future of that relationship, but it's nice to know that I am connected to these people. Like I strengthen my bond and that I know if I ask for something, people are willing to support it. So that alone was a win to me. Just
I
like
think there has to be like a willingness though to let a connection not pan out for you. You have to kind of be okay with that because it's going to happen.
It's nothing to take personally at all.
Right.
Nothing to take personally, right? Like you said, we have our 2 or 3 good people. Oh, you have your people. Like that's all. You have those people. That's wonderful. And anybody else is extra. That's great. Like they're just like, let them come when they're ready. Yeah.
And the fun part is, you establish a new connection. It doesn't really turn anything. You establish another new connection. It doesn't turn anything. A third one doesn't really turn it. Then you establish a fourth one and it turns into something. Whoa.
Yes. Yeah. I've had that, right? Like I met someone, I was living in Houston at the time, connected with a girl that was living in my complex. And we hung out a few times, but she wasn't really my type of person. But I didn't have anybody else to hang with, so I hung with her. She introduced me to someone else who was a friend. She introduced me to someone else who's a really good friend, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I was able to meet these other people because I was open to talking to this one person, right? I was open to connecting and talking to this one person. And then I found people that I could really connect with on a deep level that I'm really good friends with years later.
And you get enough of those experiences. They seem like one-off experiences when they happen. But if you get enough of those, after a while, you start to trust that, wow, I really can find people through connections. I may have to go through a few connections in order to get there, but I really can find what I'm looking for. And it's going to show up at the time that I least expected.
Yes. Hopefully that works in my dating life too. Like,
I hear you. Yeah.
On that one. Yes.
No, I'm totally on board. I was divorced in the past year, so I'm back into the dating pool again. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's part of the challenge of getting back out there again. Mm-hmm.
But again, letting your network know, same thing. That you're open.
And also developing new network. I mean, that one of the most important things I had to do, and Anne Marie knows because she was actually part of my support staff. One of the things I had to do was start getting out there again. Even though I didn't know, my best circle of friends is actually virtual, partly because of the podcast. So many people I've met over the years. I didn't have all that many in-person friends nearby where I lived, and I knew I had to start getting out there again. Well, I'm not the introvert that I was, but there's that part of me that's still there. It's still a little bit frightening. It's still a bit, edgy to have to go out there and start doing something that I hadn't been doing before and making new friends. For me, it was in the world of dance. I like social dancing, ballroom.
Me too.
Do you? Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So
okay, I got to ask you. So, what's your favorite dance style? I mean, this is a side note, but I got to ask you what your favorite dance.
Well, I'm Dominican, so I grew up dancing bachata. I love bachata.
I'm about ready to learn that one, by the way. But okay, go ahead.
The sensual bachata, that's a new thing. I don't know about all that, but the traditional one and salsa now. In the past year or so. But you have to be intentional about putting yourself in those spaces. So, and it doesn't happen as naturally as it used to when we were younger, like, oh, we just went to school together or we were working together. It's like, if you're working from home, you're not really interacting with people like that in the world. So for me, I knew that was going to have to be part of my plan to be successful here when I moved to Mexico. That I would have to actively put myself out there and put myself in situations. So I did join a dance class, and I was going there twice a week. Now, literally this week, I just joined a gym by my house. So I'm going to try to go there 3 times a week or more because I need community, right? Like, yes, I like being alone with my dog and we have a nice little quiet life and it's wonderful. But I still need some interaction sometimes. And I've been very fortunate that I've made friends here pretty quickly. I have one good friend. out here and a few other acquaintances and casual friends, which is, I'm like, that's impressive. It took me so much longer back when I was in Houston than it has out here in Mexico, which is
Sure.
very funny. But yeah, like it's actively thinking about what activities do I enjoy? How can I put myself in situation to enjoy that with other people so that I can connect with other people and grow my network naturally, not in a way of like, I have to now go network and have this small talk and I have to do this elevator pitch. Like, no, you can just go do things you enjoy and naturally connect with people and just let them know what you do when it comes up. Right.
And you have to keep doing it too. I mean, because like you, same thing. I classes twice a week, literally. I mean, it's the same schedule practically. When I first started going to the classes that I go to, I didn't know anybody. It feels stilted, especially if you're, naturally introverted. It feels, uncomfortable and so forth. And it's very easy to talk yourself out of not going anymore. I had to like keep going. Now, let's see, that was December. We're in September. So what's that? 9 months later. Now, many of those people who were in the class then, I'm still in class with them doing other, classes. And we're like great friends and we're chatting about all the stuff, what's going on with the family. Oh, you went on a trip to Portugal, all that kind of stuff. And it was not happening when I first met them because we hadn't developed the relationship yet. But that can be scary because you haven't developed the relationship yet. You have to actually keep showing up, not just once, over and over.
Yes. And here's the other thing. You actually have to initiate sometimes. You have to invite them out. Yeah. You can't
no, you're not, you can't do that. No.
You have to actually like invite them out and stuff. So yeah, like that has to be a part of it.
Yeah. It's just one more piece of, what was the phrase you used? Putting yourself out there. That's really what it is. Yeah. No matter how you put yourself out there, it doesn't matter what the activity is. When you're putting yourself out there too, you're really doing your growing. Like I mentioned before, we do our most growth when we're uncomfortable. And but for an introvert, there's where it's really uncomfortable, having to go out into a public space among people you don't know and then do it again and then again. That's discomfort. That's for some people, that's the equivalent of going to the dentist office. It's just not really good.
Yeah.
But out of that experience, that's where we do our best growing, and the growth happens not just in terms of the friends that you make, but the stuff there's all kinds of ancillary stuff that comes out of it. It's hard to pin down in advance what it's going to be. I mean, I can think back to my own experiences about what some of the things are, but just stuff happens when you take yourself out of that comfort zone and just keep putting yourself outside the comfort zone over and over again.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's strange how that happens.
I love the fact that there's themes in all these conversations. So it's putting yourself out there. It's having that consistency. It's just all those things that just every area of your life make a difference.
They make a difference and they keep us going. So, all right. So let's go back to your practice of helping coaches, because that's kind of what the context is that we're talking about here. Now, I imagine since you're working with coaches primarily who are introverts, because that's what your focus is, that you're dealing with these kinds of issues. But what other issues are you dealing with? I mean, what are some of the more common issues that coaches experience that you're helping people with?
Yeah. So starting this coaching practice when they already have very full lives, right? So they already have a full-time job. They may have a family at home, young children, and they're like now adding this, I want to be a coach. So now I have this time where I need to be practicing coaching skills and I need to be taking on clients. It's like, there's not enough time. So that's a big one, right? Making time for this thing and being willing to sacrifice now for what you're getting back later. So I know personally what I was willing to sacrifice. Like I was already working and commuting and doing the most, but I was willing to sacrifice all day Sunday to coach clients at one point. Because I'm like, well, this is what I have to do to grow my business. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so thankful for Past Jen for doing that, because she was able to leave that world of education behind and live in Mexico. Like the trade-off was worth it, right? It was a little discomfort for a while, but it panned out. The telling of the family and friends, right? Like letting people know that this is what they're doing. Then managing the point where they're signing clients and they're loving what they're doing, they're hating their job because now they want to make the switch. And they're like, oh, but this is so much better than this thing. And reminding them like to give their business baby enough time to grow so that they're not asking for it to support them too soon, right? Because there's a lot of inconsistency in income when you're an entrepreneur, and you don't want to put yourself in the mercy of like going all in so soon that you don't have the right foundation, where you have a process for attracting clients and bringing in a certain amount, and you have the emotional stability to deal with the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. So that's also a big one that we talk about.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm reminded as we're talking about this, one of I have co-hosts for each of the different shows. Anne Marie obviously does the Monday shows with me. The Tuesday shows is a gentleman named Joel Elston who lives in the Richmond, Virginia area. And he and I go way back to the very beginning of my podcast 11 years ago. Wonderful, fabulous relationship I have with this guy. But Joel at one point he has, I won't give you the whole background because there's a huge background there, but he was a former gambling addict and ended up learning about law of attraction and then becoming a therapist and then later becoming a coach, wanting to help particularly people who had gambling addiction problems, which is very difficult because gamblers don't have any money to pay for therapy. So it was a real challenge to come up with something that would work. But he ended up actually running a clinic that would help with that kind of thing. That was oriented specifically toward people who had gambling addiction problems. And then he got fired. And he told this story just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, again, for like the umpteenth time. But when he got fired, it's like, well, okay, I've got like a year's worth of income. So I'm okay for about a year. I'm not sure what I can do beyond that. But I can be okay for a year. So I can feel good about myself. And I'll just take my time. I'll start building my own practice. But he'd been building up his connections through what he was doing with the clinic to the point where he had a lot of connections in the area. The word got out that he'd been fired, and all these connections started contacting him saying, oh, I heard what happened. Hey, I have a client who I've been working with who isn't really right for me. Let me pass that client along to you. His entire calendar got filled up in 2 weeks.
It's amazing.
2 weeks. Just because of those connections he'd been building up over the years.
Yeah. And I love the spirit, right? It's like, oh, well, this happened. Okay. No need to freak out. We're going to be okay for a while. What other opportunities are there? And that's the kind of safety that I want people to create when they make the choice to leave as well. Because as someone who quit my job the first time to start that consulting company, I didn't have that safety net. So it was just anxiety all the time. It was stress. And then that's why I decided, okay, let's just go back to the steady job and grow the real business that I wanted, right? Because when I left that second time just to go full-time in coaching, it was a very different feeling. Like I had way more self-assurance in my ability to continue doing the work that I was doing and support myself well and be okay. Mentally, I was in a different place. It was like, okay, this is what we said we wanted to do. This is now the time to do it. Let's go.
And that feeling is vital. That's a really key. I mean, we talk about that from a law of attraction perspective all the time. Neville Goddard says feeling is the secret. He's absolutely right. It is the secret. But it's also a challenge because if you're not feeling it, how do you get to the feeling? So, I mean, when you're dealing, we kind of talked about this from a different viewpoint earlier in the show, but when you're dealing with your own challenges, you're trying to pull yourself out of a rut, or you had something bad happen, you're trying to get around and so forth. How do you shift your feeling? How do you get yourself into that better place?
So I think about yes, it's nice to pick a new thought or a nice fun affirmation, but if you don't believe it, your body's yeah, no, that's just not. You could say it a million times, we're not getting on board. So I always have to go to what is true.
Okay.
Right. And look for the positive thing, but that's actually true. The truth is I felt like crap before and it didn't last that long because I got myself out of it. Okay. This might not last that long. The truth is the work that I do was valuable to X person, to I'll say a client name or something. Yeah, okay, I was able to help this person achieve this result. Yep, that's true. Okay, right? And just looking for the things, the pieces of evidence that are true that I can get behind, that I feel like I can also replicate again. Right? It's yeah, it's part of my self-coaching process.
Yeah, well, you're keeping it real, and you're keeping it real because you know that's what you need in order to believe it.
Yes. I can't get from down here all the way up here. I need to see my way up. Right.
Yeah. So it's a variation on the step-by-step incremental approach, but instead of incrementing up, differently rated emotions, you're incrementing up your own scale of steps that you've taken in the past that have produced positive results.
Yeah.
That's actually more powerful, I think.
Building my belief. Yeah. I'm just like building my belief, like, okay.
Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff. This has been a really, really good conversation. We've been learning a lot of good stuff here. A couple things we need to bring up before we go. First thing, I'm going to assume there may be somebody listening in who says, that's the woman I've been waiting to talk to. Somebody wants to reach out to you. How do they find you?
Just email me is the most direct way, jenjocoaching@gmail.com, or just check out jenjo.com.
You think you could make that any simpler?
Listen, like I was like, I go by Jen now because the way I spell Jennifer is so different. That I was like, you know what? Just Jen. It's just Jen. It's fine. Jen.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. That's really good. Something else that I've made it a practice to do here on the show too. Listeners know this. Anne Marie knows this. But I noticed about a year and a half ago that you, like so many people like myself, Anne Marie, others who, maybe we've gotten a business going, or we're doing coaching, or we're doing something where we're interacting with the public, trying to share something that we picked up a value along the way and we want other people to have. We end up creating, the social media posts and the blog posts, and we do the podcasts and all this stuff, putting out all this content, helping people, and we're not asking for money when we're doing that. We're giving because we want to give, which is great. I mean, we do it for marketing purposes, but we also do it to kind of get ourselves out there. But there are also a lot of people that we really help that we never meet and we never see, and we never get credit for it. So I'd like to take a moment and give credit by saying, on behalf of those people you've never met and you've never seen, thank you for all that content you've been putting out there, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you. That is so sweet. Yes. That is so true. We do a lot of work in the background, right? And we're like, we don't hear. It's like crickets sometimes when you put stuff out there, but you want to hold on to believe that it is helping someone. And those messages, when they do come through, are super valuable, but there are ways more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to remember that, but there really are people, and every once in a while, I imagine you get this. I know I get this through the podcast. People. I had one person contact me recently who said he'd been listening since episode 9. Now I've done over 2,000 episodes. He's been listening since episode 9. I'm thinking, why don't I even know who you are?
Wow.
and not only has he been listening, but apparently he's been liking. He's been getting stuff out of it because he keeps listening. He contacted me. I never knew.
Yeah,
and yet there was, he was getting the value. So yeah, it's so easy to overlook the fact that we're helping people without realizing that we're helping people. Yeah, it's really good. Anne Marie, your internet connection was kind of giving you a hard time, so I know you were quiet for most of this, but I need you to kind of tie it all together, like I so often ask you to do. I mean, when you think about what we talked about, and what jumps out in your mind, what's the one thing that says, yeah, this is the thing that I really took away from the conversation today?
I think what I've took away from this is just the amazing power of personal development. So investing in yourself to be coached. If you want to be a coach, getting a coach and that investment, but just the power of continuing to follow your dreams and be a better person.
Dang, she's good at this. You see, Jen, there are reasons why I pick my co-hosts. There's one of them right there. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing all this cool stuff you've learned. I love that you're focusing on introverts, by the way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You can thank my coach. She was like, Jen, this is all like introverts. And I was like, yeah, that's what I am. That's my process. It's She was like, why don't you just say that? I was like, oh yeah, good idea. I will.
And that is the mark of a good coach right there. She knew exactly where it was that you were at because she'd been listening. Like you said, she was a good listener.
Yes,
and probably also a question or two, knew how to draw the information out of you, which is also very valuable. Yeah. She is. So, well, keep doing the great work that you're doing. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for being with us today and sharing all this stuff. We really loved having you here, and we wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you all so much.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.